In this episode of the Success Secret podcast, I have with me C LaBov to talk about how to discover and celebrate your differentiation with your employees first, how to win hearts, minds, and market share. Two-time Entrepreneur of the Year, marketing firm founder, Macallan, Audi Harley, and others, and the author of The Power of Differentiation, Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. So, Barry, thank you for joining me for this episode of the Success Secret podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it, and let's have a lot of fun.
So it's very important that the topic that we are going to be talking about is very important, being different nowadays, but we want to be different in a way that is authentic, I guess, and touches the hearts and minds of people. But before we go into this topic, I would like to know, throughout your businesses, throughout your experiences, and your book now, what is your definition of success, and how do you see other people have misconceptions around what success is?
I think success is making a positive impact on as many people who are around you as possible. I do not think it's connected to money or fame or trappings, resources, anything you own. I think it's about the impact you make on human beings, because all the things that you can earn, whether it's money or toys or cars or whatever, those are all gone. Those aren't going to last forever, but the way you can influence people positively can last lifetimes.
Definitely. So this is, let's say, your book is about, and it's very important because we need to know, or we need to deal with people in a way that is authentic and it's personal. And as we know that a lot of things now could be personal or non-personal, and we want to be on this level of personality with other people to build relationships, because in general, as a business or a business owner, right, we don't want people to buy from us once. We want them to keep them as long as we can, let's say. So the first thing is, let's talk about your own thing about this, or your thoughts about this. How a business can, let's say, differentiate themselves from the beginning, do you think? Or do you think it's a learning process throughout the growth of the business?
It's both. You have to, when you start, if you're a brand new company, realize there's something you do or can offer that is unique or distinct. It does not mean you're superior. It does not mean you're cheaper. It doesn't mean you're faster. It means you're just a little different. You have a slightly different approach. It might be that you have a different process or a different customer experience that you offer. You have to determine that, because the more you can hone in on that, the more likely you will also focus on the right kind of customer. Now, as time goes on, you should evolve. Harley Davidson, as an example, started out 120 years ago, and they were primarily focused on bicycles back then, not motorcycles. They did not exist, but bicycles with a tiny little gas-powered engine. Well, as time went on, as we all know, they started to change and evolve, and no longer were they bicycles, they were motorcycles. And now, within the last 5 years, they have evolved, and they also have EVs, electric motorcycles. So you have to evolve. But starting right off, you need to know what you stand for and what makes you just a little different from the next person.
So this is now critical and important nowadays, because when we talk about products or services for businesses, like, you can find hundreds of businesses or services sell the same thing, right? So this is especially important now, and with social media and AI and a lot of things that can be easier for businesses to get into the marketplace. So these things now you mentioned. So for example, in your example with Harley, they basically thought of it as a bicycle, but it was actually kind of a gasoline supported, right? So it's
Right.
a motorcycle. So, but at the time, for example, now, did people, do you think that this is something that they need, or do they have to push the idea for people? Because sometimes businesses, when we think of things or services or products, either we think that it's a good from our own perspective as business owners, but how do we know that it is people will receive it well?
Hussein, that's a great question. Steve Jobs was obviously a tremendous, brilliant genius who led Apple. And his whole approach was he did not care what the consumer asked for, because his point was they don't know what is possible. They only know what they know today. So there are times we as creators need to be able to say, you know what, I bet people would love this. They don't understand it's possible. Let's show them this can be done. And that's the opposite of what we were also talking about that I think is important. And that is, you do not want to be a commodity. Today, and I have this in my book, we are constantly pressured by what I call the commodity monster, because the monster will eat you up alive. It will pressure you to lower your prices, to reduce the uniqueness of your products, to lower your service level, all so that you can be cheap and you can be like the next person. But the problem is, as you do that, and you mentioned hearts and minds, you lose the hearts and minds of your people, because now what they're doing doesn't have any meaning. It has no significance. They're just shoving something out the door. So we not only have to do something that is unique and distinct, but sometimes if we're able to be creative enough and brilliant enough to create a concept that has not been out there before, we have to be bold enough to present it, because many times people do not know what can be done.
Yeah, that's very important, I guess, because we know a lot of things that now the internet, when it started, wasn't that big, but when it was introduced, now everyone cannot live without internet nowadays, I guess. Like so,
Right.
yeah, it's you can impact change in people's lives and businesses. That's important. And what you mentioned about being a commodity, that's very important, right? But also, like when we talk about the minds and the hearts, when we get the minds and the hearts of people, we will definitely get what you talk about market share. So this is very important, right? So does mind and heart to you equals more market share or market share?
That's a great question. Yes, I believe that if we can inspire our people by what we're doing, so you win their hearts, and if it's really something they're excited about that makes sense, something that's really a good idea and it does good things, your customer base will feel it. They'll see it in your people. They'll see it in your product, because your product's going to be made with pride. Your people will represent it, or your website will represent it with pride. It doesn't work the opposite, though. If you tear away the heart and soul of a company and a brand and a product, you're not going to win market share. You're going to lose it, because the customer is going to feel that as well.
Definitely. So throughout your career and experiences working with big names, what have you seen throughout the years that's really stood out to you?
I've seen a number of things. I think that the leaders who are hungry to grow and hungry to learn and are vulnerable, the ones that will allow criticism and will allow themselves to consider changing what they're doing or altering it, they tend to be very successful. I have also seen that those who feel they have all the answers and that they don't want to be interfered with other thoughts and other approaches, they may be successful for a while, but I think they face a lot of headwinds, meaning I believe that they will get less out of their people, they will get less out of their product. One more thing I've seen is that what does not work long-term is what I would call reducing the uniqueness of your offering to lower your price. So coming up with a cheap version of what you do normally will not work, because it either cannibalizes your more premium offering, or it dilutes your entire brand where they go, well, I don't even know what these people do because I thought I was paying for this, but you're really not getting it. And now I'm going to get the cheap version of it, and it's confusing. What we don't want to do is confuse our customer. So I think focusing on what we do best, how we do that, and what level of performance we want to stand for. Are we one of the best? Are we premium? If so, let's have the confidence to charge for it because most people will pay for it. And what we've also learned on that topic is the number one focus for most clients as we talk to them and the decision making that their customers make is not price. It's not the cheapest. It's what they feel is the best answer for whatever they're trying to achieve. And very seldom is what they're trying to achieve being the cheapest. So stand up for what you believe in, stand up for your brand, your differentiation, charge accordingly.
So do you believe that, in your own opinion, differentiation, for example, in this part of pricing is not a good idea? We have to charge some kind of a premium for our products or services because lowering, for example, our prices, it will show others that it's not a good product maybe. But did you think that maybe lowering prices and also it's not a good strategy to take market share from other companies?
You can do that. That's what some companies have done. They've lowered price to grab market share. The dangerous part of that is that if your plan is also then once you've grabbed market share and maybe put a few competitors out of business, that you're then going to raise prices again, you do hurt your credibility.
Yeah.
So I believe if you're not offering anything special, then you should not charge very much for it. But if you truly think you are, stand up for it. Show some confidence.
Yeah, that's very important because eventually we are talking about the brand because when we generally talk about, like, if we are talking, for example, about big brands, usually when we buy some coffee from big names, to me, I can make that at home for the fifth, like 5% of the price, for example. But usually, people, when they buy it, they pay for the brand name. So that's what happens over time. So that's very important. It's the brand and how it's seen to people and how people see it. So that's very important. And we want definitely build a brand that people would know about. Like, for example, you mentioned Steve Jobs. I think he was not the person who invented the phone without the keys. It was already there, I think, but he showed it to people. So a lot of us now assume that he's the guy behind that kind of phone. So that's very important to be in a place of, like, also what you talk about, being a place of leadership and actually push things through, because if you really believe in what you are doing, it will it might need some time, but it will eventually happen, because eventually people in general would want to make their lives easier. So when they discover certain things that this product or service could help me go from A to Z easier, they will definitely start riding that car, I would say, right?
I think you're right. And I think we have to realize it's not about being perfect. Sometimes we think our product must be perfect. It's not. It's about making progress. And that's one thing many companies do. That's why so many companies will have a fix. You'll get a notice on your phone, or it could be on in your electric car that says, okay, we're having an update. Well, those updates sometimes are correcting flaws, but it's okay with us. We're used to it, right? So we have to realize that's how it ought to be for what we do. If we make a mistake, let's fix it. Let's upgrade what we're doing for the future. But that still is no reason to lose confidence and to lower our price. We need to be able to stand tall and firm in that area.
Yeah, so here I also would say, like, the message of the business, like, it should be consistent, or let's say the vision of the business owner or entrepreneur or the companies should be a vision that is consistent and have long-term goals. That's very important. This is how you reach more heights in business.
Yes, it's very important to be consistent. In the English language, there are 200,000 words. We believe that you need to, if you're in the English language, you need to be very careful and pick the right words instead of the words everybody else is using all the time, like quality, service, value, price, whatever. Find some words that are unique to you and your product and consistently use those terms. That will allow you to be just a little different, to
Hmm.
stand out just a bit more than the other brands right next to you.
Yeah, that we talked about price. Like it's good to have, especially if the product is worth it. It's good to
Mhm.
have a premium for it. But quality and service is something that any business should always strive for. So it's not something that a business should be proud of because it's like I would say it should be guaranteed to try to have the best service or the best quality of product possible. So as you mentioned, we should also we can add different things into the equation of the product or the service, which is a new look or a new perspective into things, right? Because I assume
Right.
I enter any place or a restaurant or whatever it is that I would receive the best possible welcome or the best possible product or the best possible service. But when I don't,
Right.
I would not,
Yeah.
I would definitely not visit that place again, right?
Well, it's because we do not distinguish between the experience or service, let's say, and the brand. So you could produce a great product. If it's a restaurant, like you said, it could be a wonderful, wonderful menu with delicious food. But if you're not treated correctly, you're not greeted appropriately, if it's not prepared appropriately, if you're not shown the respect you're due, you walk out and say, I'll never go there again. It stinks. Well, the reality was the product was great, the service was bad, and you are now labeling the whole thing as a bad brand experience. And that goes to whether you're buying a computer, whether you're buying a car, whether you're buying a house. You blame the service and the brand together. You lump them together and you reject them. And that's important. So we have to realize it's not enough to offer the product or service that you claim you're going to do. You have to give the experience, the customer experience that it deserves. And when you fall short, you hurt the brand. It's not two different departments in a person's brain. It's all one place, and it's called that thing I bought and how I felt about it. And I hate it or I love it.
Yeah, it's very important now to give experiences because experiences, I believe, that are memorable, right? Like you won't forget how lived the situation or certain things, and that's very important. Even sometimes the little things, if it's possible or it's applicable to build experiences with the customers, that's highly recommended to do.
Mm. That's right. We have to realize the experience is very important. But again, as you were talking about, if we're providing the very, very highest level of experience, and that's part of our brand, most brands don't do that. So that's why we could consider charging a premium, because when you reach out to me, I respond. When you call me, I answer the phone. When we discuss things, I address you appropriately. When you have an issue, we get it fixed immediately. All those things will give you an opportunity to drive a deeper relationship with the customer, and therefore it is worth that little bit extra when you charge for it. It's not something that you should discount.
Definitely. So, do you think, for example, one last point on, for example, pricing, how would you think that some businesses can handle it instead of discounting? Let's say, do you think there are other situations where they can keep their prices, but let's say maybe there is certain options of installments maybe or payment plans. Do you think that's an
Mhm.
option if it is applicable to the business?
I think installments can be part of it, but again, there should be a fairness to it. So, if there's interest charged on it, so that somebody doesn't diminish your brand by offering those things. Instead, it should be, hey, if you're doing that, maybe you pay a little bit more over time, but you can offer that.
Definitely. So throughout your years of experience, what is the worst advice that you have received?
Many times I have been told to give up and I have no talent. And I did not follow those. In some cases, I was deeply hurt. In other cases, I was not deeply hurt. I appreciated the person because the person was trying to help me. But I was told, give up, you have no talent. And I moved on. I kept pushing through.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a good advice to listen to, especially negative people. You have to test and try and live what the ideas you have and make them come alive. That's very important. Like that.
I think you're right. I think they were more talking about themselves than me. So one of them said, give up. You can't do it. You don't have the talent. I gave up. I didn't have the talent. You can't. And it was like, okay, thank you very much. And I think they were projecting their problems and their life on me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, thank you, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I read a book or article that most people who are negative about these kind of things, people around you, when they say these things, it's because like they don't want to see other people to be in a different level than they are. Like they want to see them in
Right.
the people that they are. So that's one of the things that are not good. You should also always, let's say, at least wish people the best of things, at least. So,
Right. And if somebody does well, it shouldn't hurt you. And
yeah.
if somebody does bad, it should not all of a sudden make you better. It should have no bearing. I mean, it's human nature sometimes to go, well, maybe he deserved that, but it's we cannot hope others do badly so that we feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, would you say the a final takeaway for our speech here, our conversation here, that how can we discover differentiation or the power of differentiation and how to win hearts, minds, and market share as a final takeaway?
I think the most important thing I offer up, even if you're a small firm, is to stand back and look at what you offer and what you do, and truly, to your very best ability, try to discover what makes it just a little different. And then once you find a few things, talk to some of your customers and say, did you think this is a little different or whatever? Confirm it. And then after that, name it. Name what it is. We have children, you name your children. You don't call this kid child one, child two, child three. They have names, right? I mean, some people named their cars. Everybody names their pet, right? So why not name your differentiation, right? And pick two or three things at the most. And then the final thing I would say as part of it is celebrate it. Celebrate it with the people who helped build it, create it, and then with your customers.
Definitely. Well, Barry, thank you for joining me for this episode of the Success Secret podcast. Great insights you shared with us. And it's very important in business to win the hearts and minds of people so we can easily enter there and let's say get a market share with ease, I would say, because you don't want to compete on certain things like lowering your prices, especially if the products or services are premium ones, for example. So that's very important. You want to give something that is of high value and receive something of that is, you would say, that is great, equal to what you provide. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.